Next, everybody, a surprising new report about the Pentagon spending millions to investigate UFOs. We are going to have the revealing details on the secret program coming up next. Welcome back, everybody. Our final story today, it's a little out there, and I do mean out there. The New York Times breaking the news that the Pentagon has been secretly researching the possible existence of UFOs. Apparently, the Department of Defense launched the program in cooperation with former Senator Harry Reid in 2007, and it spent $22 million each year searching for unidentified flying objects until the program was shuttered back in 2012. Joining us now to talk more about this, one of the authors of yesterday's fascinating New York Times article, journalist Ralph Blumenthal. Ralph, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Talk to me about the research that went into this article.
Okay, first of all, it was not $22 million a year. It was $22 million total, which is really a drop in the bucket of the Pentagon budget. But it went for research into these objects, and no one knows what they are to this day, that have been seen by Navy planes. They've engaged with them. They've been reported by witnesses. But beyond that, we really don't know much. And the research went into trying to identify their strange means of propulsion, their phenomenal aerodynamics, which represent nothing on the face of this earth by any country. And the research, even though the program was officially, it ran out of money in 2012, it really has continued, we found out.
So what's been going on, and why have they not publicized the fact that it has continued?
Well, it's a controversial program. A lot of people, there's a ridicule factor. A lot of people are afraid of, the people would make fun of the government spending this money, as has already happened in other media.
But there's also a lot of fascination.
There is fascination. This is probably the most watched and looked at story the New York Times has run in a long time because people are fascinated by the subject.
Yeah, so what are they finding? Have they found anything so far?
Well, they have confirmed, in effect, for the first time that these things exist according to what the program said, that they have established a kind of reality to these objects that didn't exist before, that the government was standing behind. Or at least this unit of the Pentagon. They have, as we reported in the paper, some material from these objects that is being studied so that scientists can try to figure out what accounts for their amazing properties, this technology, these objects, whatever they are. So they have made some progress.
What type of material?
They don't know. They're studying it, but it's some kind of compound that they don't recognize.
So a lot of questions still. Not a lot of answers.
More questions than answers.
As we always have with UFOs.
Progress.
Yeah, but it really is fascinating stuff. Despite the fact that there is ridicule that comes along.
It'll take some attention away from the day-to-day.
Yeah,
let's put it that way.
I'd like a little respite, wouldn't you?
We could use it.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about UFOs a little bit more these days, I gotta say.
It's a fascinating subject.
Yeah, it certainly is. All right, Ralph Blumenthal, I wish I had more time with you, but we have run out of time. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, 5 years.
To go into those files and hopefully make as much of that public as possible. If there's nothing there, let's tell people there's nothing there.
This is Clinton promising to get to the bottom of the UFO and Area 51 conspiracies. And I wondered if the president would like to beat her to the punch by, showing his degree of transparency on this issue, which is of concern to a lot of Americans.
Yeah. I have to admit I don't have a tab in my briefing book for Area 51 today.
Oh my gosh, Mark Knoller, the best.
The great Mark Knoller.
The best.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hillary Clinton is redefining the meaning of foreign policy. Some are calling the Democratic frontrunner the extraterrestrial candidate who, with promises to pull back the curtain on the government's UFO files. So we sent Louis Bergdorf to investigate.
There's a new name. It's unexplained aerial phenomenon.
I've seen unidentified flying objects that were unexplainable.
Just did unfathomable things. I mean, things that no aircraft can do today.
Our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Then all of a sudden it just zoomed away.
Time to find out what the truth really is.
The aliens won't let it happen. They exercise strict control over us.
There are enough stories out there. I think that people see things. What they see, I don't know.
All of a sudden, it's just gone.
Two things happened. Something crashed,
and the government definitely covered it up.
If you saw that there were aliens there, would you tell us?
Yeah.
You would. President Clinton said he did check, and there was nothing.
That's what we're instructed to say.
Unless it's a, threat to national security, I think we ought to share it with the public.
The different lies that happen out there, and I believe that there is something out there.
It's the stuff of conspiracy theories, Hollywood blockbusters, and even presidential politics. The question, are we alone? Perhaps one of the greatest mysteries of all time. But some people believe we already have the answer. We came to one of the most secretive spots in the world to have a close encounter of our own. Along the extraterrestrial highway just miles outside the boundaries of Area 51, the folks of Rachel, Nevada know a lot about the unknown. Do you feel like we've been visited by other beings?
Yes, I would say that. I would. Between me and you, I would say that.
Do you believe we've been visited by extraterrestrials?
Yes, and they're not what they purport to be. Don't trust them.
There is different lights up there, and sometimes you can't explain them, but...
While seeing is believing for some, science demands more.
So we haven't found life yet of any kind, but we're looking, and we have high expectations that it should be out there. Now there's the question, have we been visited by intelligent aliens? The evidence is really weak.
I've flown thousands and thousands of hours in aircraft all over this planet. I've flown in space 4 times, and I've never seen anything that I would characterize as a UFO. Doesn't mean it's not there.
But how close are we to actually discovering life outside of our planet?
The potential's enormous. However, when you consider distance, the closest star other than our sun is 4.4 light years away. We could travel at about 35,000 miles an hour. To get to Alpha Centauri, 4.4 light years, it's about 86,000 years. That's the closest.
If you don't have 86,000 years to spare, why not travel to the birthplace of the UFO conspiracy theory? Roswell, New Mexico.
Every president since Truman, when this first started in 1947, has tried to open up the UFO files and failed. This stuff is classified above presidential clearance.
Hillary Clinton, she says she'll release the files if she were to be president. What are your thoughts on that? Is that swaying votes?
Well, I think it sways some votes, and it gives Hillary a sense that she's a with-it candidate. I was talking this UFO thing long before everybody else was. I said, Pentagon, the Department of Defense, the government hadn't released all their facts. They should release all the facts. There's a lot of questions out there.
Whether you're a skeptic, true believer, or somewhere in the middle, it's hard to ignore some big questions that can make us all feel pretty small.
I'm a Navy test pilot, so I'm pretty familiar with what is done in Area 51, but, I can't really comment on that. I will say, with regards to the aliens, they moved them all to Area 52. I'm just kidding.
The possibility that we're not alone in the universe is exhilarating, and the possibility that we are alone in the universe, to me, is terrifying.
Ooh. Up front now, the former Pentagon military official who ran the covert government program up until this last November, Luis Elizondo. Luis, thank you so much for your time tonight. First, tell us what the purpose of the program was and why it was so secretive.
Sure. The purpose of the program, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, was really designed to do just that. From a national security perspective, identify those things that we see, whether we see them electro-optically, we see them with radar, we see them as eyewitness reports, through a myriad of different ways and avenues that we receive the information, and try to ascertain and determine if that information is a potential threat to national security, in a nutshell.
So what did you find?
Well, we found a lot. I think it's probably been a little bit mischaracterized in some of the social media you see and what people put out, because a lot of times when we don't have a lot of information, we tend to fill in those gaps with what we think is logical. And there's still, by the way, a lot we really don't know. I think what's important is that we have identified some very, very interesting anomalous type of aircraft. Let's call them aircraft. Things that don't have any obvious flight surfaces, any obvious forms of propulsion, and maneuvering in ways that include extreme maneuverability beyond, I would submit, the healthy G-forces of a human or anything biological, hypersonic velocities, low observability, positive lift, again, seemingly in defying the laws of aerodynamics. So people
so do
are
you
talking.
think? I mean,
I
know, but do you believe, when you get that Navy pilot saying what he said, do you think that was, a UFO? To obviously, I don't have any other word to use, or that, or something else?
Sure, that's a great question. Keeping in mind, it's not just the pilot's testimony on an observation. Sure, when someone comes to you who's in charge of a multi-million-dollar weapon platform, who maintains a top-secret security clearance, who is paid and trusted by this country to go fight wars and to fly over cities with live munitions, and by the way, they're trained observers with millions of dollars invested in their training,
Yep.
I would submit to you it's pretty compelling. But on top of that, it's not just the eyewitness testimony. It is actual electro-optical data and radar returns. It's also people like radar operators and air traffic controllers. So I think the discussion should be maybe a little bit broader than that. I think people are focusing just on 2 videos coming from a set of F-18s when really it's a lot more than that.
So recently, I guess it was in October, astronomers spotted what they say could be the first interstellar asteroid. You see it there, kind of that strange shape from beyond the solar system. What do you see when you look at that?
Well, Ms. Burnett, I have to admit to you, when I ran this program, I was fundamentally looking at, my colleagues looking at 2 things.
Yeah.
What is it and how does it work? We have deliberately stayed away from going down the rabbit hole of who's behind the wheel and what are their intentions.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have a lot of feelings towards that and are very emotional about that. And what I wanted to do is to allow the data to speak for itself and then use that data to inform leadership, senior DoD leadership, about the potential threat that these type of technologies pose to national security, especially over any type of controlled airspace that we might have. So I'm not trying to be evasive in any way or vague with your answer, but
yeah. Well,
I think there's a lot of possibilities.
Look, and I know you think it's important. I know you think that the government didn't take the threat seriously enough. So let me just ask you point blank the question. Do you believe that life from somewhere else, while you ran this program, came here, visited, observed?
I will tell you unequivocally that through the observation, scientific methodologies that were applied to look at this phenomena, that these aircraft, we'll call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics that are not currently within the U.S. inventory nor in any foreign inventory that we are aware of.
So I know you're being clear, but I mean, the answer is yes.
I can't speak on behalf of the government. Obviously, I'm not in the U.S. government anymore. My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone, whatever that means.
Thing one tonight, the U.S. military has been investigating UFOs, unidentified flying objects, and weirdly, no one seems to be too worked up about it. The remarkable admission by the Pentagon came as a result of reporting by the New York Times, pretty august publication, which published a story of the mysterious UFO program over the weekend. In response to questions from the Times, Pentagon officials this month acknowledged the existence of the program, insisting that the effort had ended after 5 years back in 2012. But the former head of that program, Luis Elizondo, told the Times the UF program never shut down, and a successor was appointed after he resigned in October. So what did they find? Quote, the program collected video and audio recordings of reported UFO incidents, including footage from a Navy F-18 Super Hornet showing an aircraft surrounded by some kind of glowing aura, traveling at high speeds and rotating as it moves. The Navy pilots can be heard trying to understand what they're seeing. There's a whole fleet of them, one exclaims. So, if you think it's nuts that we held the news of an official UFO investigation all the way to Thing 1, you're going to love that we have the official video of a UFO in Thing 2 in 60 seconds. So, no big deal, but the Pentagon has confirmed the existence of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, a $22 million initiative that studied UFOs for at least 5 years, beginning in 2007, and they released video. including a 2004 encounter when 2 fighter jets chased an oval-shaped white object near San Diego. They also released a second video with cockpit audio as pilots describe what they're seeing. The Pentagon declined to give a date or location.
Dude, there's a drone, bro. There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 100. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing. It's rotating.